Hello students, let's start with our another video on permanent tissues in plants. Introduction. What are permanent tissues? How they have come from? So the permanent tissues, they have originated from the meristematic tissues. As the new cells of meristematic tissues, they mature and they give rise to permanent tissues. Permanent tissue, they lose their ability to divide and redivide. Rather than this division and redivision, they are mainly responsible for storage and providing mechanical support and strength. Group of cells in permanent tissues may be living or dead. As the dead tissue in the permanent tissues, they are mainly responsible for providing mechanical strength and support. They exhibit permanent shape and size. Cells are larger, thick-walled and vacuolated. Intercellular spaces may be present or reduced. In the permanent tissue, they have vacuoles and the vacuoles are responsible for storage purpose. Now let's move on to the next slide. In this slide, we will discuss about the different type of permanent tissue. So there are two types of permanent tissues, simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Simple permanent tissues, they are further classified into Parenchyma, Collenchyma and Sclerenchyma. Simple permanent tissues are made up of similar type of cells, whereas complex permanent tissues are made up of different type of cells. If you remember, in the definition of tissues, it has been mentioned group of similar or dissimilar cells that perform function is known as tissues. So in this complex permanent tissue, it is composed of different type of cells that combine together to perform specific function. In the complex permanent tissues, xylem and phloem. In the later part of the video, in our next video, you will come to know about what is xylem, what is phloem. Although you must be aware about its function, as the xylem is responsible for the transportation of water and mineral and phloem is responsible for the transportation of organic food. Let's move on to the next slide, parenchyma. So parenchyma is the first simple permanent tissue. Let's discuss about the structure. So first of all, these are the living cells and they form the basic packaging part of any of the epidermal layer of the plant. It consists of relatively unspecialized type of cells with thin cell wall. They have larger vacuoles as vacuoles are responsible for storage. In this parenchyma, they have intercellular spaces occurrence where they are present. So they are generally present in the outer and the inner parts of the plant, making some few layers of cell. Function. They are mainly responsible for storing the food, supporting the plant. There are special type of parenchyma which has chlorophyll, and as we all know that chlorophyll supports photosynthesis. Therefore, such type of special parenchyma which has chlorophyll, they are known as Sclerenchyma. So you can see here in the video, I have specially made it in green in color. So there is a green font mentioned there, chlorophyll and chlorine. So the word Sclerenchyma, the word chlorine, it's related to chlorophyll. So Sclerenchyma is a special type of parenchyma which consists of chlorophyll and they further perform photosynthesis. In aquatic plants, they keep on floating on the surface of the water. And this flotation is possible because of large air cavities present in the intercellular air spaces. So the air cavities are present in parenchyma. Where they are present, such air cavities are generally present in the intercellular spaces and they help in floating. Parenchyma is present in aquatic plants. The most important function of parenchyma is storing nutrients and water. That's why you can see that in the figure how large the vacuoles are. Coming to the next slide. Here you can see there are three pictures. The first one is how the lotus leaf is floating on water. The next one you can see parenchyma. So these are consisting of air cavities present in the wetland plants, that is aquatic plants, and it helps in flotation. The third diagram is about Sclerenchyma, which is responsible for photosynthesis, because these are the special type of parenchyma which has chlorophyll and that supports photosynthesis. Coming to our next slide, Collenchyma, the second type of simple permanent tissue. These are again living cells. They are composed of living cells. They are elongated, irregularly thickened at the corners. They might have intercellular spaces, but they are reduced. That means they have little intercellular spaces. They are located in the subepidermal aerial parts of the plant. Subepidermal aerial means after the epidermis they are present, so they are called as subepidermal aerial parts of the plant. So Collenchyma is located after a layer, the outer layer epidermis. After the epidermis, this Collenchyma is present. So they are located in the subepidermal aerial parts of the plant. Function: they provide flexibility to the plant. It also helps in easy bending in various parts of the plant without breaking. It also provides mechanical support to the plants. And as we all have seen that the tissues, this Collenchyma is present in the leaf stalks below the epidermis. Let's move on to the next slide. Here we can see the diagram of a section of a stem. Now which type of stem? It is a dicotyledon stem. It's a dicot stem. What is dicotyledon? It may be a new word for you. So you can see that there is a seed. There is the first image which has been mentioned here in the box, in the rectangular box. Yeah. So that is a seed, and the seed has two cotyledons. You can see there is a plumule and radicle. Plumule leads to stem formation and radicle leads to root formation. Let's remember some of the few things from the previous video. At the tip of the plumule, apical meristem is present, which will help in the growth of tip of the stem, and similarly at the tip of the radicle, apical meristem is present, which will help in the growth of length. So both the length of plumule and radicle will be increased because of apical meristem. Plumule helps in stem formation, stem growth formation. Radicle helps in root growth formation. And this is a dicotyledon which has two cotyledons in the seed. So here you can see in the figure, so we can see there is a section of the stem. Most importantly, the first layer is the cuticle, which is mainly responsible for controlling the excess removal of water. So therefore the excess amount of water in the form of water vapor will be removed out from the aerial part, and this process is called transpiration. So to reduce the transpiration, cuticle will be responsible. Coming to the next part, epidermis. Epi is the outer, dermis means layer. So this is the outer layer of the stem. After epidermis, as we have earlier discussed, subepidermal part, and the subepidermal part of the plant is made up of Collenchyma. So you can see here after epidermis there is a layer called hypodermis, and the hypodermis of the dicot stem is made up of Collenchyma, where you can see how the corners have been thickened. After that there is cortex, and the cortex is made up of parenchyma with intercellular spaces. Coming to our next slide, Sclerenchyma. This Sclerenchyma is made up of dead cells. Coming to the next point, they are long and narrow, and the walls are thickened with a chemical called lignin. So the lignin is responsible for hardening, for providing the mechanical strength and support. Often these walls are so thick that there is no internal space inside the cell. That means intercellular spaces are absent in Sclerenchyma. Where they are present, so the occurrence. Now let's talk about their occurrence. You can see here in this figure it has been mentioned veins of leaf. So yes, this Sclerenchyma is present in the veins of leaves. They are also present in the stems, around the vascular bundles. Vascular bundles are the arrangement of xylem and phloem. So around this arrangement of xylem and phloem they are present. They are also present in the hard covering of seeds and nut as the hardness will be provided due to Sclerenchyma, and that hardness is because of lignin. Function. They provide hardness and stiffness. For example, husk of a coconut is made up of Sclerenchymatous tissue. So we can see this diagram here. There is a transverse section and the longitudinal section, and it has been mentioned very clearly, lignified thick wall which provide hardness. Coming to the next slide with some of the example, husk of coconut and gritty nature of pear. These are all because of Sclerenchyma.